Hey, I'm Lorelei, registered dietitian, nutritionist. Welcome to my kitchen. We are coming up on Thanksgiving, and if you are vegetarian or vegan like me, you have probably gotten the question, oh no, what do you do on Thanksgiving? You can't eat turkey? And the reality is, turkey is really only one component of a Thanksgiving dinner. Almost everything else in a Thanksgiving dinner is vegetarian or even vegan. If you've been watching my channel, you've probably already seen a ton of recipes that can be used for Thanksgiving, from mashed potatoes and gravy, to roasted vegetables, to a stuffed squash. You could even do like baked tofu as a protein for Thanksgiving. How'd you feel about tofu this year instead of turkey?
Wait, no, I like turkey for Thanksgiving.
Are you gonna roast yourself a turkey?
I know I will have to if I want turkey this Thanksgiving. It will have to be provided by Joe.
Call me skeptical, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Joe is actually not vegetarian, thus we are proving that even vegetarians and non-vegetarians can get along. So
that's true. We do okay.
Can't
we
all?
like each other well enough.
Joe is very amenable to vegetarian and vegan foods.
That's true, they're good.
So today I just wanted to show you real quick how to make stuffing, which is another Thanksgiving classic. Joe needs stuffing, apparently.
That's how it works.
Basically the ingredients of stuffing,
Let me see if I can guess
dressing.
them.
Okay.
We have celery, garlic, onions, parsley, and brown tofu?
No. It's not that hard to guess when they're right in front of you.
Bread.
It is breadcrumbs. Bread, well, but like croutons. I actually am using whole wheat bread. I did not buy like croutons or dry bread from the store. I bought an affordable loaf of whole wheat bread, so this is gonna be a whole grain dish. I dried it out in my oven and then I cut it up into cubes.
By drying it out in your oven, what does that mean?
I put it in there at a very low temp for maybe an hour or so, and then turned the oven off and left it in there overnight. So that
by very low temp, you mean what?
175, 150, so
okay.
About low as your oven can go. We don't want to actually bake it or toast it.
Okay.
You just kind of dry it out so that it can absorb all of the flavors as it goes into the oven.
Do you have some spices too?
I do. So that is really what stuffing is all about, is the herbs. Hey, do you know the difference between an herb and a spice?
An herb is a guy and a spice is something you put on food.
Okay, that's a good guess.
Thanks.
All right. Survey says.
Well, an herb is something that grows. A spice might be a broader category.
There probably are maybe some exceptions to this rule, but generally herbs are the leaf part of a plant, whereas spices are like the seed or the bark or the root.
The nifty part.
The other part that is not the leaf. We're going to be using some herbs. We do have parsley, which is, I'm going to use that fresh because parsley is pretty easy to get fresh. But then my friend Anne from 360 Degree Flavor and Spice sent me some herbs. Yep, yeah, exactly. So I've got sage and rosemary and thyme. And if you
rosemary and thyme.
Yes.
Yeah, we can't do it. Copyrighted, can't do more than that.
If you don't have these spices on hand and you don't want to get to the grocery store, I recommend checking out her store online because you can order online and these will just get shipped right to your house. Spices are light, they are easy to ship, they don't like need to be cold packed or anything like that.
I wonder if I could do that with turkey.
And then you're also supporting a small local business, and we know that small local to meaning they're in Geneva, Illinois. And these are really fresh, so that's also nice to get some new fresh spices when you're cooking something where you want the spice to really sing.
Stuffing.
Or
stuffing.
herbs. These are herbs.
Stuffing.
Yes.
Where's the stuffing? How long could the stuffing's ready?
Well, it actually does take a bit of time in the oven. I've already cut up the onion, the garlic, the celery, and the parsley, so the cutting is done, but we do need to saute.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you to it.
Okay,
good luck.
That's fine.
Enjoy.
Sure. You can use butter to saute, but I'm gonna use Earth Balance because I do want to keep this a vegan dish just because I want to show you that it can be. But if you're a vegetarian and would rather use butter, hey, go for it. And I'm gonna use 3 tablespoons. I'll tell you, recipes that I found called for a lot more than that, but I don't think that much is necessary. Once the butter is melted, the onion's gonna go in first because that we really wanna get nice and brown. So you're gonna wanna put some broth in with the bread, obviously, as part of your stuffing. I am going to make my own broth using miso. You could also use some kind of a bouillon, or you could just buy store bought broth, or if you're really ambitious, you could make your own broth. I'm not quite that ambitious, at least not today, but maybe I'll do that in the future. So I'm gonna do 1.5 cups of broth, and I'm just gonna use store-bought miso for this. I think that miso makes a great base because it is flavorful and savory, and I'm gonna put in about 1 tablespoon of miso. I just want this to be a flavorful liquid, so it's not just like adding water. This water is hot, so it will help dissolve the miso. Once the onions are soft, you can add the other vegetables because we want them all to cook for a while and get nice and brown, a little caramely. So I'm gonna add garlic. I used a couple cloves of garlic and about 1.5 cups of chopped celery. This is really a pretty classic stuffing recipe. I know a lot of people will do it with like different nuts and maybe even dried fruits, and all sorts of different things can get added to stuffing, but this is pretty basic, like onion, celery, parsley, fresh herbs, and then of course the breadcrumbs. So while the vegetables are cooking away, we can get the other ingredients mixed up, and I'm just gonna use a casserole dish like this, and the breadcrumbs go in. This is from 10 slices of bread. And then we have parsley. This is about, well, it probably looks like more than 1/2 cup, but if I were to squash it down, it'd be about 1/2 cup of chopped fresh parsley. You could use dried parsley if you can't find fresh or just don't have a chance to get it fresh. You would not use as much dried as you would fresh because it gets smaller when it dries. And then come the herbs. So I'm gonna do about 1 teaspoon each of these. So we've got thyme, and rosemary. Now the rosemary is ground and the thyme was not a ground spice. It's gonna pack a little more tightly, so I may have wanted to do a little less on that, but I'm gonna go for it. And then sage. And then I am also gonna add some salt and pepper. Just about 1/2 teaspoon of salt, so like 1/2 teaspoon. And then also your stock is gonna have some salt in it, unless you get like a salt-free stock. But miso is definitely salty tasting. And then like 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, but it's very hard to grind into a teaspoon measure, so I'm just gonna kind of guess. So I could probably let these veggies go a little longer and get browner, but I want to get going on my stuffing. And they are gonna cook a little more in the oven, obviously. This is gonna be in the oven for a while. It's gonna cook first covered, and then after that uncovered to kind of give it a more brown top to it. And make sure you get all the liquids. The fat that we sauteed these vegetables in is kind of the only fat going into this dish, so make sure you get that in there because it is gonna add some flavor. And then we can add the broth, and that's gonna actually soak almost immediately into some of these croutons, and it's gonna help make it a little easier to mix up and stir. So this isn't complicated or tricky, but stuffing is one of those things that seems to get relegated to only Thanksgiving. So it's not made all that often. I don't know why, because it is delicious. You could have it any time of year for sure. I didn't know how to make it. I kind of had to look up a recipe, and then I tried it and I was like, I didn't like that, so I had to adjust it. So hopefully this same formula will work for you. If you aren't sure what to do and just want to make a really basic, classic stuffing without adding any meat, make sure that all of the dry bread cubes get mixed in so that they don't end up staying dry. I think the first time I made this, it had so much liquid in it, it took forever to cook. So it may not feel like it's really super wet, but if it is, it will just take a lot longer to cook. I know it always sucks to not know how long something is gonna take because you set dinner for a certain time, and then if you put something in the oven and it takes 20 minutes longer, you're starving. If you do want to stuff something, might I recommend like a little pepper. I'm gonna try some in this pepper and just see how that turns out. You can see it's already packed down a lot because once the liquid got to the bread cubes, they kind of start to get smushy. And you can taste this before you put it in the oven if you want to. I think tasting as you go is helpful because you can adjust the seasonings. If you're like, ooh, that needs more salt, or you know what, I could use some more herbs in there, then make the adjustment now. And then when you get it done, it will be ready. It'll be good. I think it's pretty good. That herb combination is, if you grew up eating stuffing for Thanksgiving, it's just like, it has that nostalgic taste to it. I'm gonna pack it down, and then it just is gonna bake like a casserole. Makes for a great side dish. In the oven you go. I will see you later. I'm gonna put you in the oven too, but on something. Okay, so reality check. Stuffing takes a long time to bake. About 40 minutes covered and then about 40 minutes uncovered.
So hungry.
Oh no.
So hungry.
What's with the hat, by the way?
My hair looks really bad and Lorelei needs to cut it tomorrow.
I see. I'm sorry you're so hungry. Now that it is done, we can do a little tasting. You want to do a tiny tasting?
It's super hot! It just came out of the oven.
Okay. Plan ahead for how long things take to cook. I'm not always the best at that.
She is pretty good.
You want to taste it?
It's super hot! We just got through this.
It is super hot.
You let me know how it is.
Okay.
I'm going to take my hair of shame and go.
Oh! All right. It's super hot, but it tastes, yeah, it's hot. So you probably also want to give enough time for it to sit a little bit before you serve it. But it is tasty. It's nice and soft, it's moist. It's not a super dry stuffing, but all the flavors really come together. And we have a pepper too. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Next up, vegan pumpkin pie. So yes, you can do vegan Thanksgiving.